My name is Thomas Crooks, and it has always been my passion to create and build things of my own. Today, I want to tell you a little bit about myself and my academic goals, my passion for building things, my love of cooking with my family, and lastly, what I hope to achieve in this course.
Certainly weird to see that now. A quiet community college student in 2022, in just 2 years, Thomas Crooks would do the unthinkable, traveling to Butler, Pennsylvania, mounting a roof, and firing 8 bullets toward President Donald Trump. What made the 20-year-old nursing home aide turn into a would-be assassin? A recent report by the New York Times deeply examining the last years of Crooks' life, putting together the pieces of the quiet unraveling of the man who almost killed Trump. The investigation finding that he went through a gradual and largely hidden transformation, operating in secret, using different names and encrypted networks as he planned to attack the then presidential candidate, the amateur marksman becoming a regular at his local gun range, even attempting to build bombs in his own bedroom. Crooks was able to hit the president's ear, killing a bystander and wounding 2 others in the process before being shot dead by the Secret Service, leaving much of his motive a total mystery. Still the source of so many questions right now. And one of the journalists behind this extensive new report, giving us a new look at Thomas Crooks, is Steve Eder, investigative reporter for the New York Times. He joins me now. Thank you so much for being with us, Steve. First of all, your article is so detailed, explains how he was smart, he got good grades, didn't seem politically involved. Were you able to pinpoint a certain moment where the switch flipped with Crooks?
Yeah, that's a good question, and thanks for having me. I don't know if there was a specific moment. I don't think it quite worked that way. I think looking back, what we did at the Times with my colleague Tunnel Hobbs, we did a close examination going back over several years, but in particular the past 2 years or so with his life in community college. I think what you see are these moments, these like threads that sort of are part of his history, where you see for example, the beginnings of certain kinds of purchases related to guns and to firearms, and doing those kind of purchases using aliases. That began, maybe 15 months out, I believe. Later, purchases of explosives, attendance at the gun club, and just sort of a quiet, secretive, drumbeat, parallel to his sort of everyday student life that was going on.
Something about him going to the gun range more than 40 times, even going on Christmas Day, and you report that he used these fake names with some of the gun purchases. Do you think there were red flags missed by law enforcement or by his parents, or was he just doing this with such secrecy that no one had any way of knowing?
Yeah, I think it's hard to say. I mean, he certainly was taking steps to proactively be careful. I think you could tell that from the reporting that he was, for example, he would use a VPN to obscure his internet usage. He was acting in a way that I think was hard to let on to people around him. I mean, that said, in our report shows how, once the investigators did enter his home that night, I mean, they did see, bomb making activity, explosive making activity, in the home, and other things that upon, retrospect, would have been things that would have stood out, perhaps.
Were you able to figure out motive at all, Steve, in everything you looked at? Because it seems like political motivation is sort of hard to pin down on this one.
Yeah, and it's certainly something that I think, went into this report. I had been involved in the coverage originally, in particularly trying to report on Thomas Crooks in the days after the shooting. And one of the reasons I wanted to come back to was to try to fill in some of the picture here. I thought that there were a lot of unanswered questions, and one of those things was to try to understand motive. I think that there's still unanswered questions, on the motive front. I think we were able to, through our reporting at the Times, we were able to, review a great deal of schoolwork, essays, these videos, including the one that you showed, that give little hints of who he was, but I don't think that there's anything there that, for example, our report mentions an essay that he wrote about ranked choice voting, and there's a little bit of material in there where he discusses, frustrations about polarization in American politics, but doesn't really go much further than that. So I think in terms of finding some sort of political motive, I don't think that it was there. And in terms of what we saw and what the law enforcement has said about the case. Certainly there's the mental health aspects that we also reported on that ran, as part of this.
I want to show some of your reporting. You were able to nail down some of the Google searches that he made ahead of the shooting. He looked up things like how far was Oswald from Kennedy, as well as specifics on Butler ahead of the attack. But even before that, he searched both RNC and DNC. So he searched RNC and DNC. Was there anything in your reporting that helped you figure out why he would have wanted to kill President Trump specifically?
No, I mean the searches, the internet activity that you referenced, and the things that law enforcement had released, initially, and then our reporting kind of added to that. Looking at, there were some specific days that we were able to isolate, for example, his activity of looking at news sites, of looking at a Trump website, and then gun sites on the same day, things like that. But there was nothing there that you could look at it and say, oh, here's why. I think that still remains elusive.
Yeah, one of the big mysteries still, which is kind of crazy a year later. Investigative reporter for the New York Times, Steve Eder, we appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much. You can read Steve's full report, the quiet unraveling of the man who almost killed Trump. It's at thenewyorktimes.com. Thank you again, Steve.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.